We're back with the Lone Wolf. Finally, we've been away for a little bit. Switched out to our new set in our new office here. You guys like it? You like it, honey?
I do.
Do you?
Like it a lot.
Yeah. We are back with a very, very special guest. Actually, long-time Canyon Lake resident, grew up with his kids here, reached out to me because he wanted to talk about something that's important to him, and it's probably important to all of us. I just don't think a lot of people pay enough attention or know enough about the city council subjects to really jump into them. But this one really got my attention, and it's about the city's new EMS fee. I know there's been some questions about it going around, but not a lot of insider knowledge. So I'd like to welcome John Zaitz to the show. He's a longtime Canyon Lake resident. You're on the POA board. You're on the city council. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background with the city and so on?
I was on the POA board from 1993 to 2000, and on the city council from 2000 to 2008, and the mayor from 2004 to 2005 for 2 years.
Wow. So a lot of background in the city. John contacted me. Like I said, I grew up with his kids, and I've known him forever. He wanted to discuss the CMS fee. So before we do that, I wanted to talk about Fiesta Days. People are calling it, what are they calling it? The Park Hopper event or something like that.
Yes.
Kind of crazy. They weren't going to do a parade, but now somebody is organizing a golf cart parade starting at 8 a.m. I believe it starts at the Eastport launch ramp and then goes through the city. So we're definitely going to be out there. We just ordered a whole bunch of koozies for everybody. So if you see somebody with a Carlisle shirt on, Carlisle Realty and Lending shirt, or a Lone Wolf shirt, come hit us up. Come get some koozies. We got some free giveaways, some free gifts, cool stuff. But can't wait to see you. We're also having a grand opening for our new office the Friday before Fiesta Days or the Park Hopper deal. It is the 28th between 4 and 8 p.m. 31520 Railroad Canyon. We are right next door to City Hall. Between City Hall and Fit Body Boot Camp, you'll see our signs on the door. Come down, check it out. Probably have some sushi. We'll have cocktails and definitely have a good time. So try and swing by there. But we also look forward to seeing you guys at Fiesta Days. I refuse to call it the Park Hopper.
I know.
It's
It's been
still
Fiesta Days for so many years.
My whole life.
Yeah.
Right? So without further ado, let's discuss the issue at hand. John, where do you want to start?
Well, JJ, thank you, and thank you for giving this service to this community. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to the people here and to yourselves, and maybe raise some questions in everybody's minds as to what is going on. First, I'd like to congratulate the new POA board members.
Yes.
And I think one of the things from my point of view is that the people in Canyon Lake have said that we want to be responsible for what's going on in Canyon Lake, and the board responsible to us. And as I see it, that the people are tired of these dues increases on a continual and large basis. When I was on the board, as I said earlier, from 93 to 99, through 99 to 2000, our dues were $197 a month. And if you raise the dues $3 a month, you no longer were going to be reelected to the board. The people wouldn't stand for it. And during that time, we built the lodge, Holiday Harbor, Eastport, Outrigger Park, Golden Gate Park. We refinished the baseball diamond at Galt Field and the stables. And we did that all with a $200 dues. And so, things can be done. When you take the number of people and the amount of money, it's going to raise and allow people to spend a lot of money, and hopefully they spend it logically and well. Now what I want to talk about today is that you got the people on the council, on the board, to take care of things financially. Now you need to do that with your city council. You need to take a look at what the city council has done to you on the EMS program. Now, one of the things the city council did is back in November of 2019, they passed Ordinance 187. And 187 put into effect the EMS program. The interesting part about that is that when it was voted on, no council member knew, and they weren't allowed to know what it was going to cost you people. that wasn't going to be determined until June. So they voted for it without knowing any of that. And then they were even told that they cannot even do a study to find out what it would cost unless they approved it. So they approved it. Then a study was done, and that came out in April. We never saw it. No one ever saw it. It was never given to us. It was never discussed by the council in their June meeting when they approved the fees of $193 to you. One of the things that the city did was that the city took a lot of liberties, and I have in front of me two documents.
The fee you were just talking about, was that the EMS fee?
This is something
193 or
else.
so? Okay, something else.
That your ordinance says some things that just aren't true. Now, in the city, we talk about things being transparent, and that's the political way of saying truthful and honest. Well, the city was not truthful or honest, and in my opinion, what they committed was a fraud on you people, all of us. And I'll explain that to you in detail as we go along. But the city didn't have a specific program. What they did was copy everything that Norco did, line for line, word for word. If you were in school and did that, you'd get in trouble for plagiarism.
Yeah.
But I have the documents from Norco, and I have the documents from Canyon Lake, the ordinance documents, and they are exactly the same. And in it, some of the things that the city said is that the city said, the city of Canyon Lake, whereas the number of emergency medical service calls has increased dramatically. And what the Norco said, wherein as the city has grown, the number of calls for medical services in which the fire department responds has increased dramatically. You know, word for word, line for line, paragraph for paragraph. The thing that's difficult, though, is that the number of calls did not increase dramatically. The number of calls for the last 2 years was stabilized. But they didn't give you any of those figures. There weren't any figures that were presented to the board or to anybody. And it goes on, and it says that
Is this the Norco stuff?
well, it's both.
It's mirrored.
Yeah, I moved the paper and I shouldn't have. The city had said, whereas the city council has determined that recovery of certain costs, get this term, recovery of certain costs, because this is a recovery program. The recovery of certain costs incurred responding to calls for emergency medical services is essential for the continued provision of emergency medical services with a modern, professional, and first-class public safety operation. So this is a recovery program. And the way they determined the costs, and this is what you have a copy of now,
Okay.
that they went to the budget, and I have received this information through public records requests, but the council never discussed it. The council, as far as I know, never saw it. In June, it was never discussed with them. They never asked one question regarding any of this. But what the proposal showed was that they took the medical fire and medical budget of $2,248,000. Now, JJ, you've been in the fire department,
Yeah.
and you've got some knowledge as to fire budgets and things. Let me just get that document.
That's chief stuff. I'm a ground level grunt. I miss it. I really do.
That the fire department's costs were $2,100,000. But that's the total cost of the fire department. That's not the cost of.
And is that the CAL FIRE contract that we're talking about, or is that the new fire department budget?
It's the fire department's budget for the
Right.
city. Gosh,
For right now. So
Yeah.
probably to satisfy the contract. I'm
right.
assuming.
It upsets me that I moved the papers over wrong.
Yeah, I see it here, 2.240,
No,
operations and maintenance.
this is what I was getting to. The cost for the fire department at $2,214,000 is set up in this document that the city gets from the fire department. Of that, there is a captain's fee of $248,000, one captain, two engineers at $435,000, three firefighter twos at $375,000, two medics at $647,000, a totaling of $1,707,000. Now, there's an additional expense of $489. The only thing that has anything to do with medical in that, the paramedics, is a medical defibrillator basis of $26,000. So there's basically $450,000. That has absolutely nothing to do with paramedics and medical expenses. Now, the city, as I understand it, is required to have a fire department. It is not required to have paramedics. So now they want to recover the cost of the paramedics. So if you look at this, and I've talked to the battalion commander, that of the $647,000 for three paramedics, if we did not have paramedics in Canyon Lake, that the cost reduction for the city would be $250,000 to close to $300,000. So the cost.
Because they would replace those with firefighter twos who get paid less than the firefighter two medics?
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
Right.
So we'd still have the same staffing levels, just not ALS.
If you had a fire department, which the city is required to have,
Yeah.
this $2 million budget, $2.2 million budget, would only be like $1.9 million. So if you're going to recover the cost, the recovering of the cost that they should get is that of $1.9 million, not $2.2 million. So there's a deceptive thing there that
not with the
we're not
additional.
recovering, as they said in their initial thing, that it's the recovery of the professional services for medical services. So
Yeah.
your paramedics. They're not recovering the costs. They're recovering their total expense to you as a city.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're calling the captains and the engineers they're the ones getting the medics there, and then the firefighter twos. I mean, we could hire 5 medics. It would increase the cost, but we could do it with a non-medic and a medic on the engine. So
Now,
you
how-
proposing that we take the medics off the engine and just run BLS personnel to save that money?
no, I think we need the paramedics on the truck. And I misstated because I was back on the council in 2015 because I was on the council when we closed the fire station, which we promised never to do.
Yeah.
But and that you pay money to keep it open, and that's one of the reasons why I'm no longer a council person, because I wasn't going to run again after we had to reestablish the fire department. It was a travesty in closing the station.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Okay, so going forward with what the city wants to do now with the new fire department, are they considering the same type of staffing that they have existing with paramedics?
We don't know that
I don't
yet.
know.
I've
didn't know if
directly
that's
asked
come
that
out.
question to the council. They don't know that yet. I'm waiting to get in touch with the new chief that they hired to see what their staffing levels are. I was kicking this idea around after watching all those RVs burn up, and if they're going to run 2 pieces of equipment, they have to have a minimum of 4 staffed personnel, period, the end, 2 of which need to be operators. So a captain on one piece of equipment, an engineer on the other piece of equipment, a BLS firefighter, and then a firefighter paramedic. That would probably be like the minimum to be able to run that crew.
Well,
So on
because-
smaller incidents, they could be a 4-person engine company. They have a second due engine coming from Canyon Hills or out.
Yeah, because
So-
I know a lot of the time, just from my background with work, sometimes the fire department would be there for a lot longer than it would be before EMS showed up. So I do think the paramedics are important for me. You know what I mean? Especially being on the lake and us having children and ourselves and our family and our friends and stuff also. But
Well, something to keep in mind to tie into that is AMR, which holds the contract to be the exclusive EMS transport agency in the county and in this city. They are a for-profit business, so they run with the least amount of vehicles, the least amount of personnel, and the longest response times allowable by REMSA, which is Riverside County EMS Authority. Not beating down AMR. I used to work for AMR back in the day too, and I love those guys. But those for-profit guys, they're with the not having a ton of units like we have fire stations, they're going to take a while.
And
I've been on scene for 20 minutes without an ambulance before.
And just a little clarification, this EMS fee is not going to take out what the ambulance is going to charge us also, correct? For transportation or any of that kind of costs. So
Correct.
we're going to have the EMS fee, and then we're also going to have whatever costs the EMR charges. Then obviously,
Yes.
health insurance will cover some of that, but for those
Yeah.
who don't have health insurance,
It's $1,500
Or have-
just to put you in
Yeah.
the back, typically.
yeah, and then oxygen and everything else I know for
Yeah.
and ride times. So it's not going to take away what AMR charges us. It's now
It's
in
an
addition
additional fee if you get sick or injured.
to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to throw
What's-
you off track,
no,
John.
That's okay. My track here really is, when you ask the question, what are you suggesting? My suggestion is that we have what we have today, contracted with CAL FIRE. My concern is that what the city did, as I said earlier, was a fraud to the people by just pointing out, and I'll keep going, of how they misinterpreted everything. If you're going to recover a cost, then that has to be a cost that they had to pay. And just jumping ahead, one of the things that you live on the Eastport, I live on the Eastport. There are people who live from the main causeway to the town center and up in the hills, and they are being charged the same fee, $193 or $1,400 if you don't do that. And those people are serviced by Lake Elsinore and Menifee.
Yeah.
So they now have an agreement with the CAL FIRE that when anybody comes into their area, that they be made aware of that information, and so therefore they can then charge you the $1,400. It's not a recovery.
Like
If
a
you didn't-
non-citizen or something that calls
no,
911?
a resident.
Okay.
A resident, although a non-citizen or a guest in your house
Yeah.
is the same thing.
Would get charged
They-
this.
Yeah, they went away from Norco. Norco said that if you have a guest in your house and they need medical services, that's covered. Canyon Lake said no. They got to pay the $1,483.
Really?
So that's going to be, say they are transported, so AMR plus whatever the resident is paying of Canyon Lake, plus another $1,400 if you say your mother or
Yeah.
father is coming to visit and they haven't, they need paramedics.
As long as they can identify that situation, then
And if you have an accident
Possibly.
out here on Railroad Canyon Road,
yeah.
people just driving back and forth, not a resident here, they could be charged $1,483. The city was looking, there's a lot of additional income. Well, since they are not performing the service by Station 60,
Yeah.
how is it a recovery?
Because it's within the city and they have a mutual aid agreement for 9405 to go cover that, because it's the closest resource available, which is something that we're going to lose if we go to a private city department. Is, if you have, if grandma's having a heart attack out in front of Bluebird Hall, there's going to be two engines that are closer than the city engine. You know what I mean? It's going to take them a little bit longer to get over there.
But it's not a recovery. That's my point.
Yeah.
They didn't have to pay. Part of the thing that we've known and the statistics have shown is that Canyon Lake Station, Fire Station 60, handles less than 50%, in some cases 45% of the medical calls.
Yeah.
The other 55% are handled by Station 5 and 94.
Yep.
So if you have 55% of your calls in your community are handled by somebody else, you're now going to charge those people $193 for that service or $1,483 for that service, and it's not a recovery. So to me, that's a deception to the people. You and I should not have to pay that because 5 is going to come to our residents.
Yeah.
And if they are busy, then 60. And maybe we're going to get stuck with that. That's the way it is. But the first responders to those two areas are 5 and 94.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I were to be sitting in the city's position and were to respond to this, I would probably say that they're trying to recoup the fee that they're paying for engine 60, although engine 5 is taking the run because they have a mutual aid agreement.
Yeah.
That's how I would argue it. I don't know if that even holds water or not. A lot of this stuff, honestly, is above my head. I've never been on city council. I've never been the mayor. You know what I mean? But it's very, very interesting to me. And
I know also, and we have so many firemen and EMS and anybody who live in the lake, that this is a really big, the whole fire department is a very serious thing for them, to the point where they've reached out to you personally, because
I get
you
a lot of
work
phone
with a
calls
lot of
about
them.
this.
This whole thing is a very, very big deal.
Yeah, you had over 60 firemen stop a fire at 40 RVs. One of the largest fires in Canyon Lake history, as far as I know, with the exception of the main gate when Sports Stop caught on fire and burnt that whole strip down up there. Yeah. If we had, going back to the city department thing, if we had 2 pieces of equipment and 4 dudes, and then engine 94, they would have been in deep shit. I mean, absolute deep shit.
Absolutely. I was parked on the side of the road, obviously, because there was so much going on the other day. And
well,
I had Corona engines that passed me. So
you had Santa Ana winds to that, and you're getting your third engine from Murrieta, your 4th engine from Corona, your 5th engine, or 4th or 5th engine from Hemet. And I don't know exactly how that's going to work. Again, I'd like more clarification and talk to the fire chief so we actually have facts to talk about. I'm presuming most all of this information that I'm speaking about, but that's the only way that I could think of it working, and you have just a 10-mile-an-hour wind behind that fire that happened at the RV storage yard, and we probably would have lost some homes. It probably would have got into the vegetation and took off up towards Tuscany Hills. There's no telling. I mean, it really could have went bad. It was a good stop. Good job, guys. I'm proud of you.
JJ, you've got to take a little more credit for yourself than that, because there is only one person on the council that knows as much, maybe knows more, because he was a higher officer.
Yeah.
But was a retired fireman. The other 4 council members have a lot less knowledge than you do as to anything regarding fire.
Sure.
And so they're taking words from consultants and stuff like that, and doing stuff. And so when I was on in 2015, we looked at having our own fire department. We did a study and passed on it for lots of reasons I won't go into today, but part of it is just staffing alone. That takes a year in some cases to hire somebody.
And build a good staff,
and retain it. And I don't want to get into, because I don't know enough about what we're doing, but the retirement program, all that stuff, we're not going to retain. I don't want to get into that.
Ton of moving parts, yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing that I want to get into with this and the fraud is that the city then took the amount of money that they're given under the budget for property taxes for fire purposes, and that's $1 million. So then they took the $2 million, subtracted $1 million, they came up with an amount, and it comes out to be $939,000 that they divided by $4,870 residents, and that comes out to your $193. One of the things that they said in their report is that they took that amount of money because that is dedicated money. And the unfortunate part is that there's other money that the city gets, but it is not dedicated. And 2 council members that were on the council back in 2014, when the UUT was put onto the voter polls, knew, and Mayor Creighton, who was the mayor at that time, said, "We are putting this on the ballot, but we can't say it is for fire. If we say it is for fire, it becomes a special tax, and a special tax requires a 2/3 vote. So we have to say it's for a special tax and for the city. That way it's a 50% vote." Now, we knew at that time, and I have an email document from the city manager to the cities of Lake Elsinore and Menifee that said that we are not going to be able to keep the fire station open. If the UUT doesn't pass, we are going to close the fire station January 2015.
And the UUT, was that the $1 million that you just spoke of?
No.
Okay.
No, this is from your property tax.
Okay. It's a different pool of money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the $1 million that comes from your property tax, plus we have the UUT that goes to the city to offset that fire department cost as well.
Correct,
Is that right?
correct. So
And
you
how
can
much
see-
is the UUT?
The UUT has turned out to be $1 million a year.
So that's what we're at 2.2 to run the fire department. So we have $1 million in property tax plus UUT. That's two.
$2 million.
Wash, right?
Yeah.
So why are we getting charged 193?
Because they said that is not a dedicated tax.
Oh,
It
well
is
they
not-
weren't. Oh, okay.
It is not a dedicated tax, so they took no money for it.
So
Absolutely
that-
no money.
That UUT was named differently so they can get the vote through, but really that's what it's for. But
Right.
since it wasn't named as a fire tax, which they should have done and got 2/3 vote, then it would have offset pretty much all the fire department costs.
Yeah,
Is that right?
But it wouldn't. It wouldn't have
Okay.
passed. It's 2/3 because that tax, as a regular tax, general tax, only passed by 20 votes.
Okay.
But the documents, and this is for Measure S, which is the extension of the same program, just says that it is for the fire and paramedics and for emergency response times. And so we know that it is for fire. This is the
This was the I guess the sales flyer for the UUT basically
from the city, yes,
for the UUT, right?
right.
Okay.
The Measure S proceeds will continue to maintain essential services, including life safety services, emergency response times, keep Canyon Lake Fire Station open, and prevent cuts to firefighters and paramedics and sheriff's deputies. This is,
So Measure S is the UUT.
well, actually, no. Measure S, yes. Because I
The
forget,
UUT.
there's
Yeah,
the
okay.
S and the DD.
Okay.
The D, one of them,
Ballot DD or the Measure DD.
yeah, DD, was the initial UUT
Okay.
was to be in effect for 6 years and then sunset.
Okay.
At that time, Randy Bonner, who was on the council when that was decided, who was also on the council when this was done in June of last year, never spoke up and said that we needed to do this in his statements at that time for 6 years because we were going to go and get the BLM land behind the fire station. And we were going to develop that. And we're going to make like 1,000 houses out there. We're going to have a tremendous tax increase. And this will pay for everything. Well, so it's now been 7 years and we're no closer to any of that. And God forbid that ever happens.
Yeah.
But then the
I have
automatic
mixed
sunset
feelings about
was
that.
the automatic sunset thing in 2000 was taken up in 2018, and that was either DD or S, I can't remember. And the people voted 75% to have that UUT tax forever.
So,
And
that etched it into the stone then.
right. And
So
so whether I don't want to mislead.
Sure.
This is one or the other, but
Okay.
it's the same tax.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you could say, well, it's not just for that. We could have that for that, but what percentage is for it?
Are they wanting to take that extra million to go, and since it's technically a fire tax as they call it, for other things?
That's exactly what
Exactly.
he's saying.
Because that's what I'm thinking.
Well, it
and I'm-
wasn't labeled as a fire tax because
the
it would have
votes.
required a higher vote, so they labeled it as,
For a general.
a general tax. So now they're saying, no, that $1 million for that general tax doesn't count towards this $2.2 million yearly fire department budget. Am I saying that correctly? Am I
Right.
understanding you? Okay.
Yeah. And then
So between the property taxes and the UUT, which is now forever, it's
Well,
two
it's a
million,
wash, basically.
$2 million a year. Yeah, we're upside down $200K for the fire department. But
Ed, I think I gave you a copy of this.
I have a whole bunch of documents here
Yeah.
from the city that Mr. Zaitz presented us. I'm going to scan these and put them on a link below the video if you check it out. Also, drop your comments down there if you have something to say about this or you want some more information. We'd love to get it for you. Drop your comments down below. Let us know what you think. Might be something to look into.
Okay, in April, this document here is the City of Canyon Lakes voter survey, and part of the survey was done from money paid by somebody who wants to put some cannabis business in here. Had to put up some money up front, and so they use that money up front to do a survey. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to go through all of the cannabis survey stuff, but at the end of that, on page 6 of that document, the city says, and I'm going to read just for accuracy, the city's contracts with the county for police and fire protection are skyrocketing, and the city's budget has a significant structural budget deficit. Revenue sources such as the utility user tax have not kept pace with the public safety costs.
So they're acknowledging, in fact, that it is a fire department related tax.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, UUT revenue has been declining as more people switch to solar power, cut the cord on cable TV, and conserve water. The city already operates a lean operation, and no amount of cost cutting at the city hall will solve the problem. Now, here's the question to the people. The city of Canyon Lake is considering asking voters to repeal the utility user tax, sometimes called a UUT, and replace it with a parcel tax of $350 per year on each home to pay for police and fire services. Now, that's a special tax. Mm-hmm. That would have to be voted on. But that's $350, which times 4,800 people is $1.6 million. Mm-hmm. So they're going to increase it by 6. But what they've got basically now...
Is this in addition to the EMS fee? Or was the EMS fee... Did the EMS fee kind of take...
They didn't discuss
this?
They didn't. This was done in April.
Okay.
So was the study done that says to charge this amount of money.
Okay.
This was never discussed in a council meeting. I'm just saying, here are things that the city is thinking of, and then there's another one down below. But this would get rid of the UUT. And the EMS now, they budget $700,000 for it. So they're looking for $1.7 million for the UUT and the EMS, and $1 million, so they're going to get $2.7 million.
They're making money now.
Yeah, and one of the things that they're looking for is, and I gave you a copy of that, out of their budget this year, if they go to their own fire station next year, they anticipate the budget's going to be $1.7 million, not $2.2 million.
So we're going to take a decrease, $500,000 decrease in fire department costs going to the city department.
That's what they're predicting. Now, one of the things that...
Is there a study behind that, or just people throwing crazy numbers out? You know what I mean? Is there some sort of factual algorithm or basis, or somebody who prepared a report that supports that?
Does this EMS cost cover police too? Or is this just for
No.
the paramedics part?
Just the paramedic
It's
and
mainly EMS.
the EMS.
Yeah, they kind of throw police services in a lot of the verbiage of the stuff we've been looking through here today.
Well, because I want to make it look good.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is with us, or with Canyon Lake, I've noticed they don't let the police really do anything unless it's like a serious call.
Yeah.
And I think there should be a little bit more done, but.
Liz is retired law enforcement, so she's very proactive on the law side.
Yeah, it's always good to throw the police in because everybody wants police and everybody wants fire, and so nobody's going to say no to police and fire. My comments in all of this is that what they're doing here, what I said earlier, is a fraud. How can you say that you have $0 from the UUT?
Yeah.
And we're going to charge you $193, and from what I've seen, that they plan on charging you $193 next year. And
What do they stand to gain? Just a balanced budget or a surplus budget, or is there personal gain out of this, or what?
No, I don't think any council member or anybody has any personal gain in any of this. It's all ego.
I agree.
It's ego. Part of the circumstances that we got into in 2014 was that the city was, when I left the council in 2008, we had a $5 million reserve.
Wow.
In 2014, we had less than $2 in reserve. And we're losing money on an annual basis that there was no real way that the city could stay in existence without going broke.
Yeah. Other than raising taxes or growing the tax base.
Right. And you had somebody sitting in this chair not more than a month ago or two.
Yeah.
And I won't mention the mayor's name, but that was so proud that we now have a balanced budget.
Yeah, it sounds great, but sounds like it may be costing an additional cost to taxpayers that they don't really know about. So let's say we get the $1 million from the property taxes, right?
Yeah.
We get another $1 million from the UUT, which is not going away. So that's $2 million. We're upside down 200,000. Does that mean that the 4,300 homes in Canyon Lake should split that 200,000? And if so, what does that make the EMS fee at that point? That would be peanuts, right? Instead of $193 a month, wouldn't it be closer to like $50 a month? Or I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know. Yeah, have we looked at that?
I agree with your thought process.
Okay.
But I got to go back and say we're arguing about the wrong argument to some degree.
Okay.
If you go back to my first thing that I talked about is the recovery.
Yes.
Of EMS.
Yes.
So it's not a recovery of $2 million. And so my concern with all of this, and why would you go through all of this stuff and everything? My concern is that the city thinks, because we're a bunch of schmucks that never got to see this, they never talked about it. People at home shouldn't understand it.
Yeah.
They got better things in their life to do.
Yeah. We got kids Zooming at school. And
that they now have a blank check. Now let's say it's not $1.7 million for their own fire department. Now they got to have 2 trucks and more people.
Personnel. Yeah.
I don't know, and it's going to be $3.4 million, double the amount.
Yeah.
So what's the city going to do? In my opinion, they got away with this $2 million and subtracting $1 million and saying you owe $193. So now we got $3.4 million. We'll subtract $1 million. Now it's $2.4 million. Now you owe $400 a month.
I see. Well, what about this $350 a year on top of it? Is this in addition to the EMS fee?
Well, they said here that it's a substitute for the UUT.
Oh, there's a substitute, but the UUT doesn't have a sunset anymore.
It's forever.
Okay, so that $350 a year is off the table. We don't need to discuss it anymore. Is that
well,
right?
they haven't proposed it.
Okay.
That was on, I think, the survey he was talking about that was done in April. Was that correct?
Right. They haven't come forward or said anything about it. Then if you go down to the next one, is the city of Canyon Lake may also consider asking voters to approve a sales tax increase of 1%, which would generate an additional $300,000 to $400,000 a year to pay for critical services such as police and fire. If you were voting in an election today, would you vote yes or no? Well, in the first one, the UUT and the 350, 49% of the people opposed it. Only 29% of the people supported it. 60% didn't know. But the opposing of the sales tax increase was 50%.
Yeah, that'll send people to. Well, I know Menifee has a higher tax rate too, but that'll send them to Elsinore or other cities to purchase larger items.
Well, you do anyway. You don't purchase anything here.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know how you could get, from Sports Stop, Pepe's, the market.
I can solve this whole problem right now.
How's that?
It's very, very, very simple. You have the City of Canyon Lake Fire Department run their own ambulances and charge for them.
Can't.
The City of Indio does it. Cathedral City does it.
AMR
Ranch Mirage, Indian Wells, Palm Desert.
AMR in this area has an exclusive contract.
For how long, though?
I don't know, but for a period of time.
Yeah.
We can't do that. I tried to do that when I was on from 15, 16. I tried to get just paramedics in Station 60.
Ambulance. Oh, cover it with an ambulance. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, a squad truck with paramedics on it.
Yeah.
Same thing like Seven has in Sun City, a squad that
Yeah,
can still
patrol.
be paramedics, but they still have,
Well, that's what they're
minimum
proposing with the
fire
with the
apparatus.
new fire department is one patrol squad, kind of like Sevens, and
Oh,
then
okay.
an engine. You know what I mean? But I know in the city of Indio, I worked there for many, many years in the fire department, and I ran a box there forever. And we billed people, and I think it offset most, if not all, of the fire department costs. I mean, we're running a lot of calls, but it'll provide a better service to the community members. They're going to get an ambulance a lot faster. Back to what we were talking about, AMR's response times can be severely delayed because their minimum staffing levels. You can get better service, and you're going to make money doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to know when that contract expires and see if we can put some sight on that.
Well, I think many cities would love to do that.
Yeah.
As we get. Now, let me just move on real quick.
Sure.
To this year. Now, this June 2nd, I believe it is, the city council is having a meeting, and they sent out a notice. Well done this year, not like last year, as part of a brochure for CR&R, which is up in litigation at this point, which will be decided possibly in August of this year, August the 10th. There's a court case in Riverside. But that this says that they're going to have that on the agenda again, and they're going to keep it at $193. How nice of them, how lazy of them, how deceiving of them. If you take a look at the budget that they're going to propose and pass that same period of time, that the fire property tax for 2021 was $1,121,000. They anticipate it to be $1,175,000. So that's going to be more. But that the cost of fire for 6 months with CAL FIRE, you have that there, down a page or two. No,
This one.
that one.
Yeah.
Okay, if you read this,
yeah.
look at this. That the cost of fire for 22 is $1,000,004. That's 6 months of CAL FIRE. And then there's $663,000 for personnel and $293,000 for operations, and a capital outlay of $735,000. So if you take the amounts that the city anticipates spending for fire, drops from the $2,000,002 to $1,998,000. That's on this document. And a fire structure fee that's higher. So instead of $939,000, the amount is $823,000. Now, that's not necessarily that significant. It's $110,000. But to you, the people, if you divide that under the same way that they did it, I reproduced their documents with the current figures, your 193 drops down to 132.
Sounds better.
$132.
Sounds much better.
Yeah, and
So why
down
keep
from
193?
Yeah, and if you believe what the city manager says, if you can believe it, that the cost of fire is going to be $1,007,000 next year,
The new department.
but their own department.
Yeah.
That you take that $1,007,000, and you're getting a fire structure fee of $1,002,000. The difference is $500,000. That's without any of the UUT.
Yeah.
Or anything. That drops down to $84 in 2 years, if they did that. Now, it makes this somewhat unimportant unless it can go the other way, which I think is what they're planning on. That if none of this is done right, then I can get that money back from you people. But why did they not take, it took me 20 minutes at home to do this kind of the study from their documents, but they didn't do it. They're leaving it at 193. They're going to get $300,000 more than they should under the recovery, according to their figures. And so, it disgusts me that the city has committed this fraud in the first place of not using UUT and not changing it to what the anticipated amount's going to be for this year, that the whole thing is there. And I hope that the people in Canyon Lake rise up like they did for the city council, for the POA, for the POA.
Fight for the flags and
say, enough of this, enough of this. We are not going to do this.
Well, one of the concerns I have too is there's so much confusion around this EMS fee, and I think that some people, especially some elderly people who may have heard about the fee, may think that they have to pay the fee only when they call, right? And I've actually seen a lot of very sick people in my days as a paramedic who were afraid to call 911 because they were afraid to get a bill, or they're afraid to, they know that they couldn't pay for the services. They're afraid to, go to collections or, owe thousands of dollars. So that's kind of a concern as well. I mean, any fee sucks, but especially when you start attaching it to life safety stuff, where it could really impact people, I don't like that.
Keeping your time down.
Yeah. We're good.
I'll just go back and just restate something that I just said.
Sure.
My concern is that the city said under their ordinance 187, they're going to recover the paramedics' fees. If you want to do that, that's fine. If you want to do that, then don't take $2 million as to your cost. Your cost is $300,000, and you're getting recovered that. Even if you took $300,000 and divided that by 4,870, that's going to be a whole lot less. You're asking people for $700,000 plus. That's plus. And I've asked the city. I'm digressing. I asked the city for the figures of how many people had to pay $1,483.
Did they respond?
They said, we don't keep those statistics.
Your bank account does.
I said, how many people from Station 5 and 94 were charged the $1,483? He goes, we don't do that. They just handle it, and we don't do anything. They have no statistics. They have no information. They don't know what it means.
That's not good.
No.
So just to summarize the overview, I think I've got a really good grasp on what your position is. And so just to summarize, if they're going to charge an EMS fee, your argument is they should only be paying an EMS fee on the costs for the paramedics on the engine, not for the whole fire department as a whole, because the city is required to have a fire department to begin with.
Correct.
I got to agree with that.
Well,
I got to agree with that. You know what I mean?
I think the people would agree with it if it wasn't done, I'm not saying this is done intentionally, done under COVID and under the pandemic, when people didn't see documents, they didn't talk about it. If you watched the June 2nd meeting, that whole session took about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
No questions by the council.
I was wondering about that myself. I watched the city go live maybe a month or so ago for a council meeting, and it seemed like it only lasted like 10 or 15 minutes. Is that right? Or was I watching like a weekly meeting or an interim meeting or something? I don't know.
I see where they say, hey, if you want to ask questions, send it here. I think it doesn't make it as easy as it does if you go in person to say, hey, wait, time out. We need some more information on this. You know what I mean? It makes it a little bit harder because of the COVID times of getting maybe so much coming or questions coming from the residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I would love to go and hear more about this. I want to know more about the fire department. I think getting the
There's a lot of
fire
people
chief
who
to
want to
come
know a
in
lot
and
more about that.
explain it.
Yeah, just a side thing for your interest in police, Liz,
Yeah.
that since we've redid the road, widened the road, we no longer issue speeding citations on Railroad Canyon Road.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? I haven't seen them sitting up at the church in a long time.
They can't. And
Really?
they can't use radar.
City told them no. Yeah.
Can't do it because
It's been like that forever, just not Railroad Canyon.
it's a whole nother subject, but I'll just do it real quick. You want it real quick?
Sure, yeah.
It's because once you widen the road to the 4-lane road, do everything, you need to do a speed study. if you don't do a speed study, you can't use, it's a speed trap, and therefore you cannot use radar. So if they can follow somebody, and if they're speeding, give them a ticket.
Get
But
them
they can't
again, maybe
use
go
radar.
further down
Yeah.
Newport
I mean,
or
I've
Railroad.
got statistics that show that we had 800 in some years, and then since then, citations, just total citations. They do more citations in the parking lot here for license plates and things than they do out there.
I kind of agree with keeping the cops out of pulling traffic and all that nonsense all the time, unless it's like somebody being just super egregious. You know what I mean? I'd like to keep that one officer we have dedicated to the lake available for real responses. You know?
See, I think one officer coming from a background of I'm just going to give an example, like domestic violence, anything that comes like that. We don't want to go there by ourselves. I think having one officer in the lake, I think maybe
huge safety problem.
Two needs to be what we have for the lake, because
They have a backup. They'll pull them from Menifee or Elsinore.
Yeah, I get it, but still, backup. How far are they? Are they out?
They call security.
Do you have? Don't
They
get
come
me
with their
started.
orange lights.
Don't get me started on that. But you know what I mean. You
Depends
don't
whether it's
go.
blinking or not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if
you see the
they're-
PSA they just came out with? If it's solid, you're good. If it's blinking, pull over. It's like, why don't you just turn them off?
Yeah, I don't.
Just turn them
I
off.
can't get on the whole POA thing.
Eliminate the confusion.
But who knows how long they would take to get there. I just think that's a little bit of a safety hazard for our police. But
Unfortunately, that's our budget. It's always been that way in Canyon Lake, and until we have a bigger tax base where we raise taxes, which is a super unpopular subject, it's going to be what it is. We can go back out to Texas and run it how they run it. Everybody's a volunteer, and you got a county sheriff running around. He's got 30 minutes out if you need him. You got to take care of yourself. Those rural areas. We're still kind of, not very rural, but a little bit.
well, I think our security that we have in the lake, they go a little overboard of what they're qualified. I feel that they're qualified for.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I think they need
That's a
a
different
management
subject.
change over there. I think that the security can serve a lot of good at the same time, but I think they're improperly or misdirected. So hopefully the new POA board's going to take that and run with it. So at any rate, we are all out of time for today. Please support our sponsors. PZA's having some incredible new stuff going on. They're getting ready to expand. Go up there and try them out. If you haven't tried them out, they are absolutely fantastic. They have a blood orange beer on draft there that is amazing. Tell them the Lone Wolf sent you down there. That's all we have for today. Mr. Zaitz, anything in closing? You all good?
I thank you, JJ.
Think we
Thank
got
you.
it all
yes,
out?
thank you very much for
Yes.
coming on.
Good deal. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Nice
Okay.
seeing you.
Good to see you.
Till next time, Canyon Lake, we love you. Take it easy. We'll see you soon.
See you later.